In my book club, there's a woman named Tammi, and she has 1M. So in book club, we go by 1M and 2M.
Hey, 1M, how'd you feel about that?
So we
that
sign
last chapter?
off. Love y'all, 2M.
It's almost like a rapper name.
I'm gonna go with that, yeah, because I'm such a rapper. It's totally that's me.
You were
sure.
You were musical in school, though. Hi, my name's Matt Landau. I'm the founder of VRMA and the Inner Circle, the most independent group of vacation rental professionals online. And this is Unlocked, the Tiny Architects edition, in which we travel to meet some of my contemporaries in their element and find out what makes them so special. This is Unlocked. Let's first introduce yourself here.
All right. I'm Tammi. I have been in the industry for how many years now? 6 years. And I'm a 21-time Airbnb superhost.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
I don't think I've ever heard of anyone who has achieved that many.
Well, the program is like that's the longest time because that's when the program started. So I don't know what there must be some number of people who are 21-time superhosts. So
wow.
Yeah, I feel good about that, and I'm also the VP of Customer at Properly. Mm-hmm.
And what is Properly for those who don't know it, who have been living under a rock for all these years? Heather always uses that phrase. If you don't know Properly, you've been living under a rock. What is it?
It's an operations management platform. So we do anything from standard operating procedures checklists. It's a way for property managers, owners, and hosts to have visibility into turnovers and cleaning that's happening at their homes with real-time inspection software. We just added services where we're actually doing remote inspection for property managers and hosts, which is pretty exciting.
Wow. How do you do those?
I literally have a team that sits and inspects every verification photo that a cleaner or maintenance person takes when they're at the job and inspects them for quality based on the standards of the property manager or host.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds so futuristic, but also at the same time, it's so simple.
Yeah. And the thing about the industry, what I always used to talk about when I was first in the industry was guest experience and hospitality, because it's really like, that's my passion. That's how I connect to this industry. And as I started to get more experience and have more experiences as a guest, because we travel a lot for the company. So I estimate that I stay in vacation rentals about 4 months out of every year.
Wow.
So you get a lot of experience when you check into that many homes and spend time living in that many different homes about good standard operating procedures and what creates a good guest experience and that sort of thing. So I've actually, all the things that we typically talk about when it relates to guest experience, like a welcome note or having some like delightful surprise for people that relates to what they like or what they're there to do, that sort of thing. Those are all fantastic, but if guests check in and don't have a good first experience because the lock box doesn't work or the key wasn't there or there's no toilet paper or there are no towels or something, the remotes aren't working, those kinds of things, those are all guest experiences too. So we have to start at that base level. I'm getting off track a little bit.
No, you're not. I'm more with you 100% of the time.
Yeah. So quality, I think quality is one of the biggest threats to our industry. And I like that what we're providing solves that. And I really like, my mom says that she accuses me of being controlling, if you can imagine. So with this new service that we're offering, we're doing a number of things that makes me feel like I have some way to really improve the quality and consistency of our industry as a whole. Because we start with working with our property managers with creating standard operating procedures and hitting all of the things that are typically, missed and can create a bad guest experience, and then all the way to being able to work with service providers and inspect the work that they're doing. So what we do is we provide real time to service providers and say, oh, you forgot the roll of paper towels, or please, see if you can scrub out that stain, kind of a thing, so that things can be corrected before guests check in, because that's the moment that is important to our industry, is the moment that a guest arrives at a property and the experience that they have staying in that home.
And I learned from you over your sushi lunch that you like to travel with a special item in your pocketbook.
I do.
A dish sponge.
A new sponge. Yeah.
I actually recorded that. So let's just do a throwback to
Sure.
that conversation.
Yep.
Kitchens
Kitchens.
are a precious pillar of the vacation rental proposition.
They absolutely are.
It's probably the biggest differentiator
Hands down.
from a property perspective, yes? Maybe close second would be common areas.
Yeah, everyone's under one roof.
But kitchens are, and most kitchens that I've stayed in are not awesome.
Right. And there are some basics that people miss. So, oftentimes I travel with my own kitchen sponge and my own apron. Not that I expect someone to provide an apron in a vacation rental, but kitchen sponge.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone travel with their own kitchen sponge.
I like to wash my own dishes. I'm not a dishwasher person. And I've checked into too many places with either no thing to wash dishes with or
A nasty
used
one.
Yeah.
I checked into a vacation rental the other day that offered me a loofah.
That's lovely.
I think it's a loofah.
For your skin?
Yeah, but it's
a loofah.
but not hard. It's like a soft.
A spongy?
Yeah. One of those.
Spongy loofah?
Yeah.
That's nice.
And it was new.
It was a fresh one. I was going to say, was it a fresh one?
I know, that's exactly where your mind went.
How
do you know it? I don't-
My face went from delight to horror. The possibility.
Yeah, it smelled a little weird, but it felt great on my skin.
Felt so soft after.
Tammi, we've known each other for so long, and I have never gotten the chance to sit down and just ask you a bunch of questions. Are you okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
I notice you've brought your cape
Yeah, my
as a
properly
true
cape.
super woman.
Yes.
I've always loved those capes. I would wear them. Could a man wear that?
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
It's like a poncho cape, kind of a hybrid, sort of a, yeah.
For being around the fireplace or something?
Exactly. You could do this.
And you always have, apart from your distinction in the thought leadership space in your business, you always have impeccable style.
Well, thank you.
You're always very thoughtfully put together and almost always in the colors of properly.
I try.
So right now you've got all black, you've got boots that are like, how would we describe these boots? Catwoman almost.
Okay, I like that.
Stylish Catwoman. Your belt, I noticed, is orange.
Yes.
You've got the black cape, top with properly. It's always very put together. And something I've started to notice, several people have said, your style is good, but you should think about improving it. And these are people that I trust. They've said
People saying this about to
me?
Oh, to you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I started thinking about it. I was like, yeah, you're right. The way we put ourselves together when we go out and work in our jobs can make a difference. And so I've enlisted the help of a style coach.
Are you guys ready to learn about who we're helping tonight? Yeah!
Nice.
Yep. And I now appreciate people who really do put thought into things.
Thank you. If you were to see me on my day-to-day work stuff.
Is it
I
equally
work from-
fashionable?
No, it's not. I work from home. So, sometimes I do a lot of video calls, and you can do a lot with just some lipstick and a cape. And, it's like being on TV. It
I'm
doesn't
missing
really.
both those things. I'll try them for my next call.
Yeah. You just need, like bulky scarves. And it looks, yeah, you can decide on the lipstick, but.
Where are you from? I don't even know.
I was born in Wisconsin, raised in Montana, and I've spent my adult life, most of my adult life in Seattle.
Okay. And
Yeah.
is that where, did you go to college?
I went to college in Montana,
Okay.
and then I had a little tiny stint in Spokane for about a year, and then I've been in Seattle. And then in the most recent years, I spent time in San Francisco because my partner is there, and then we have a team in New Zealand, so we spend about 4 to 5 months out of the year there.
Those are that's a great distance between those places.
Yeah.
But the West Coast of the United States, you would consider your home?
Yeah, for sure.
And you love Seattle, you love San Francisco, that's your style. But you also spend time in Europe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, we have a team, we have team members in Europe, and then we have, as you know, there are a lot of conferences in Europe. Alex's family or mother is in Europe, and so we're there probably 4 or 5 times a year.
Who's this Alex?
This Alex guy is
Alex,
Alex Nigg is the CEO and founder of Properly. And we actually met. It's kind of a cheesy vacation rental story, if you will.
Okay, I'm sold.
We met at the very first Airbnb open in San Francisco in November of 2014. And it was when Chip Conley had just started the Superhost program. And so I think a couple weeks before the conference started, I got this notification that I had Superhost status. And there was a reception at the headquarters, the Airbnb headquarters, the night before the conference started. And so that's where we first met. We didn't start dating then. Came months later, but that's where we first met.
Was he a Superhost as well?
He was that was the only way. It was a Superhost reception, so you could only be there if you were a Superhost. The rest of the conference, anyone could attend, but they did the special pre-conference reception at the headquarters.
And were the first conversations, the first times that you hung out, nerdy or romantic?
Mostly nerdy. It was a combination of stories about hosting, which was really lovely. We were talking about guests that we'd had and the experience of hosting and how satisfying that is, and talking about hospitality. But he was also there talking to hosts as to do proof of concept for Properly, because he'd started the company a few months earlier. And I think that I maybe had the most enthusiastic reaction to the idea behind the app. And he has said, maybe he's making this up, I don't know. He doesn't really make things up though, but the most thoughtful questions about the app. So I liked his baby.
Yeah, you were turned on.
Yeah.
And did either of you do anything weird or funny in the first few dates?
In the first few dates? Well, we didn't have a first date until 7 months later. And he lived in San Francisco and I lived in Seattle. So our first date was actually, we rented a cabin on Orcas Island. So we had our first date weekend was a week.
Very accelerated.
It was a little bold. But, he wasn't going to fly up to Seattle to just go have dinner. So he found a place on Orcas Island. We've been back there since. He rented a 2-bedroom, and it was like the cutest little cabin on the water. And so we had a really nice weekend.
Orcas Island is gorgeous.
It's so lovely.
For anyone who has not been, it's about a little 20-minute water plane.
Well, you could do that, but there's also a ferry.
Oh, there is?
So you can drive on a ferry. Yeah, you drive to Anacortes, hop on a ferry.
Gotcha.
Which is what we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I only fly water plane.
Well, okay.
And I flew in on my water plane. Naturally. And it's just out of the wild, that place.
Yeah.
And so you have this date, 2 bedrooms, very respectful thing to do.
Yep.
And you both started working on Properly together at that time, or what?
Well, he had started the company almost a year before, so he was a bit well down the road. And then after we started dating, when you're with someone who's running a startup company, you get involved, and especially because it was a startup company that related to the business that I was into. And so for the first year and almost a half, I was just peripherally involved in providing support. But we had a very young engineering team at the time, and they had moved from Italy and they were living in San Francisco. So we really kind of felt like
Italians,
parents to them in some ways. They're like our kids.
How many kids?
Well, there were 3 engineers that came from Italy, from Alex's hometown. All I adore every one of them. I just have infinite love for all 3 of them. And one of them is still with the company. The other 2 have moved on to other.
Where did they live?
One is in New Zealand, one is back in Italy, and the other is in Vienna.
No, where did they live?
Where did they live?
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Are they all in your apartment hey, the Italians?
Sono un italiano.
No, well,
Kicking soccer balls and making pasta.
It's north. Yes, there's no soccer, but there's a lot of pasta that happened, of course, because when they first moved to San Francisco, they were in their early 20s and they were like from college and we kind of had to walk them through, like, this is what you do at the grocery store, and this is how you make things in the kitchen, and this is where you should put your empty beer bottles when you're done with those, like, stacks of things. But they, as you know, San Francisco is so expensive, and so we found this apartment for them, and it was like the grungiest, grossest apartment. There's 3 bedrooms, and they all 3 live there, and it's $4,500 a month, which, for San Francisco for a 3-bedroom is reasonable. Right. And they borrowed one of Alex's cars the whole time, and they were always at our house or we were at their house.
And they all speak English?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they were great coders, great developers.
Yeah, great developers, great humans. Like they grew, they all grew up in the same place, so they had the same kind of work ethic, which is this combination. It's that part of Italy is German. It's German Italian. So it's and it's like in mountain. You don't the South Tyrol?
That part of Italy, it's German.
Yeah, it's like mostly German speaking.
No,
never. You got to go there. Okay. You got to take you there sometime. It's gorgeous.
I've heard they have some of the best programmers.
It's really and they like just have this kind of like really good work ethic and just sweet humans and so that was a lot of fun. Those were sort of in the early days, and then when their visas were running out, we needed to find a place to move them. So that's when we opened the New Zealand office. And so I was kind of like...
wait. That's not a natural...
That's not. I know.
So yada, yada, yada. We opened
so then we moved to New Zealand.
Office.
Yeah.
Why did you choose New Zealand?
Well, for a number of reasons. It was... It's actually not bad distance from San Francisco. It's an 11 or 12-hour flight. The time zone is actually... They're a day ahead, but in terms of the time of day, it's only a 3 or 5 hour difference, whereas in Europe, they're 8 or 9 hours ahead of San Francisco.
Interesting.
So it's a little bit easier in that regard. It's English speaking. We had some customers that were in New Zealand and Australia, and then Alex has some history with New Zealand, so we had some connections there and people that could help us get the company, the entity set up.
If I'm not mistaken, there's something about a big home.
Yeah, so he, about close to 20 years ago, he bought property there, and
Alex.
Alex bought property there, and it has a house on it, and that's rented out full-time to tenants. But in the back, it's almost 12 acres, so it's like this big forest and a big field. It's in a really rural area. 4 or 5 years ago, he put in an orchard, and we maintain, even though we're not there all the time, we maintain a garden, so we're both kind of farmers. I grew up on a farm. I think that was part of his allure, or part of my allure to him. It's a
farmer girl.
Farmer girl, yeah. And so we have this garden and an orchard, and so we had a place to be there. Also, we've since converted the garage in the back of the property into a studio, and that's kind of our refuge on the weekends when we're in New Zealand with the team. We just farm and garden and make a lot of food and can things and harvest.
If I'm not mistaken, you invited me earlier
I did,
today.
Yeah. So I have had this idea for one thing that strikes me about our industry is that when I talk to people, everyone works really hard, and even though it's the vacation rental industry, a lot of us don't vacation all that much, and we're in the business of extending hospitality, and we're not on the receiving end very often, and it's demanding, even though it's like the vacation leisure industry, to be people providing that is really demanding, and it's a lot of work, and you have a lot of stakeholders. You've got guests and owners and and team members, and so when I talk to a lot of people are kind of tired, and I experienced that myself, and we've got this big piece of land. So for the last just about year, we love to cook for people. It's one, we love to cook people. Oh my God. That was we love to cook for people.
Dabbling in cannibalism.
No, we're not.
We love to cook, but only.
Just decided to slip that in.
Only in New Zealand.
And so I've had this idea for about a year to just put out an invitation to people in the industry to say, we're going to be there for this chunk of time, and it's not a conference, so we don't have to, I'm assuming that the topic will be about vacation rentals because most people that I've met in this industry really love it and are passionate about it. But just a place for people to get together, and we're on a bike trail, we're close to kayaking, and we have a big field for tents, and we have a kitchen. And so I've had this vision of just inviting people for a big
All right, well, I got news for you.
Sleepover.
You just invited thousands of listeners on the podcast. You're officially all invited. If you want to go take Tammi up on that, reach out to her directly via email.
Doesn't that sound nice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds really nice.
Yeah.
I would like to talk a little bit more specifically about the heart and soul of this industry, and that is the independent and professional property manager and owner. Some owners don't consider themselves managers. I just use it as a catch-all.
Yep.
You meet a lot of them. You meet them in properly context. You meet them in your travels, in various conferences. You meet them as a traveler staying in someone's home. What are you observing as the more successful characteristics of those who seem to be really embracing and riding this wave, as opposed to those who maybe are not reaching their full potential?
Well, I think one, people who find a way to sort of restore and take care of themselves in the midst of what they're doing. That's one thing that people seem happier, and I think that it's one of those things that you have to be kind of at full capacity and feel nurtured and restored and good to deliver, to feel like you can be in that place to really be open-hearted and generous and deliver a good experience to your guests. And that's not always, for some people, that's not always happening. So when people can bring on team members or find ways to scale and make things easier for themselves, then it seems to help people still. Most people that I meet have really high expectations of themselves and have very high standards for what they want to deliver to guests, and take it really personally when they don't live up to their own standards or when someone has a bad experience. And, ultimately this is the hospitality industry. And for me, hospitality as a human connection point and as a way of being as a human is really the heart of what we do. And we talk about, and I do too, I'm in the tech industry. As it relates to the hospitality industry, what it comes down to is really like the connection between a traveler and a host. And so the more that people can do to support themselves to be in that open-hearted, generous space because they feel, they're not exhausted, they're not running themselves ragged, that sort of thing. They're taking time for breaks.
Self-care.
Yeah, that's when our industry really shines, and that's when we as hosts and small property managers really shine and thrive in what we do.
I like that, and it's probably common in other entrepreneurial spaces, but there's something about our industry, like people are so excited about it. It's such an exciting moment at this time. You don't want to lose time. You just want to go full force ahead. And you're right. If you're not taking care of I think of it like the food that you're putting into your body and the health that you're taking care of your body, you may crash somehow.
And I think this industry, people who are drawn to this industry are people who are naturally empathetic and givers. And that can be, people can sort of wear themselves out doing that perpetually.
Over again.
Yeah, and there needs to be some reciprocity and some restoration.
So you are in tech, and that gives you an interesting perspective on the kinds of tools that people use to make their lives easier.
Yep.
What's a company that you really like that's not your own, that you really like that solves a tech problem in a sort of symbolic way?
In a symbolic way.
My questions are extra tricky today.
Yeah, what do you mean symbolic way?
Represents a greater movement in some capacity. Maybe it represents a new kind of safety. Maybe it represents a new kind of interaction with our guests. Maybe it represents a new kind of marketing.
So something in the vacation rental industry.
Yeah, that's kind of impressed you of late.
Yeah. Well, I think digital guest guides are, I'm not someone who, I think there are some really smart tools like price optimization and revenue management and some of those kinds of things. It's not where it's not the part of the industry that I gravitate toward naturally. So anything that makes the guest experience easier, and digital guest guides do that. When people travel, they're out of their element. Like, it's always exciting to plan a trip, and people get, excited and they plan for a long time. It's also terrifying to travel, to leave the safety and the day-to-day routine of your home and sometimes your people, go to the airport, get on an airplane, go somewhere else, land in a city that you've never been to before. And what helps people feel more comfortable is having a lot of information and knowing, feeling like when I'm in this new land that I don't know about, I've got like a little touchstone out there of like, oh, I've got information about how to get from the airport to, on light rail, or I've got information about when I get to the property. I need to know kind of a lot of people need to know, like, what are my creature comforts when I arrive where I'm arriving? So for me, I need to know, how am I going to have coffee in the morning? So
where's the dish rag?
Yeah, exactly. Those kinds of things. So I prepare for that. So I think digital guest guides are a really easy way for people to have information before they travel, and information available and accessible to them when they land and are sort of like a stranger in a new place and feeling for any sort of like, I need to be able to have control over my environment and my experience.
And the information is organized and easily browsable. Because I've stayed in homes where the owner sends me like 10 PDFs and attachments and pieces of paper with all these different things. And it's a lot of information indeed, but it's also very overwhelming. Yeah. The beauty of a good digital welcome app is its organization and presentation.
Yeah.
Before we go to break, I really like Touch Stay as a digital welcome book. Really reasonably priced, incredibly easy to use. Guests love it. The founder, Andy McNulty, has been an Inner Circle member since the very beginning, and I cannot tell you how many other Inner Circle members have used Touch Stay happily, achieving all the things that Tammi says and more.
This is Sean Miller, the president of Point Central. As a sponsor of the podcast, and also as a person who recently beat Matt in a one-on-one basketball game, we have the opportunity to interview Matt in this season's podcast. Well, we're going to save the full interview for the end of the season. Right now, we're going to share a small tidbit with you. Enjoy. What are some of the other cliches you feel are circulating out there now that are, again, maybe causing first-time property managers or maybe vacation rental managers who are looking to take the next step in their business that are causing confusion or making them go down paths that you don't think are necessarily true to who they are?
Okay, cliches. I have a thing with cliches. First of all, they become cliche because they're really good phrases and people resonate with them. So let's get that out of the way. They're good. They're a good thing in general. But there are indeed some cliches that really bother me, and I try to avoid as much as humanly possible. One genre of the cliches is the traditional business talk that people use. So whenever I hear any of the following phrases, my brain turns off and I tune out. Value proposition, funnel, like moving people through the funnel. Even things like customer service. I've heard so much, and they're so cliche in the business world because they're true, but I don't like them for our industry because they're not really as accurate as they could be. That's one bucket. Another bucket are the specific names, such as Airbnb, has become cliche. It represents something that is more than specifically Airbnb. And I think that's dangerous I think vacation rental professionals who operate truly independent vacation rental businesses, who very well may use Airbnb in generating bookings, need to begin describing their businesses as professional vacation rental businesses and not Airbnbs. You could argue that that's a nice way of explaining what it is to people, and I'm all for that, but we cannot make synonymous Airbnb with the broader vacation rental industry. Not okay. Third and final bucket of cliches are the business case studies that people try to compare us to. When I see people get up on stage and give examples of how Walmart grew their business, and this is how you should build your property management business, I just think that's a cliche. It's an easy way of trying to explain something, but it's a disservice because it's not relevant enough to us. It's not close enough. When I look at the comparisons of small businesses that have built up, we must look closer towards hotels, for instance. Don't just reach for the easy Amazon example. Look at something a little bit closer to the industry when we're giving examples to avoid that esoteric, like, okay, here goes the canned message again, and to actually keep people engaged when you're explaining what you do. 3 categories of cliches that I think do our industry a disservice. All right, enough interviewing me. If you want to learn more about Point Central, head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB. You can sign up for a free demo, you get free HVAC analytics, and Sean's team takes incredibly good care of people. Now let's get back to the show. You have been working directly with managers now since the beginning?
Well, I've been with Properly officially for a little over 3 years.
And over lunch, we talked about what we feel is maybe one of the most virtuous aspects of a vacation rental property, and that's the kitchen.
Absolutely.
We had some nice kitchen talk. I was just listening to it on the recording. A kitchen as a aspect of the home, and as with your experience in Properly, you guys get deep into kitchens. What are some things that you've learned about kitchens that, like, what's their place?
Well, I mean, kitchens are where, for me, so I've experienced them as someone who works for Properly. I've experienced them as a host myself who provides a kitchen for guests to use. And I've certainly experienced them as a traveler who I travel all of the time. So anywhere that I stay needs to be, when I'm staying somewhere, I'm not going out for every meal because that's cool to, like, I use a kitchen. And I think most people that choose a vacation rental actually use a kitchen. For
at least like a meal or two.
Yeah, or breakfast, like nobody wants to have to get up and like get ready and go out to find food. You like to be able to have a slow morning. That's one of the advantages of staying in a vacation rental. So the usability of a kitchen is so important. And unless you stay at a vacation rental, you don't know kind of like what small things could make a big difference. So I've stayed at a lot of places that have had just like one kitchen towel, which seems like not that big of a deal. Like, it seems like kind of a picky thing, but you can't wash your dishes and dry your dishes or dry your hands with one kitchen towel. You just can't do that. So I travel with my own sponge, which I know is like super neurotic. There are a couple of other kitchen things that I travel with. I actually travel with a collapsible funnel.
What are you doing with a funnel?
I know. You would be surprised how many times you need a funnel. I don't know.
Tell me like one time.
I don't know.
Literally. Tell me one time. What do you like?
Oh my gosh.
That salt shaker needs refilling.
No, it's mostly for liquids. I know, it's silly. I'm a little bit neurotic and I'm very kitchen forward when I travel.
Okay.
I travel with my own, there's a handheld lemon reamer. I like lemon water in the morning. And it's not okay to just, if you squeeze it, you don't get enough of the...
Okay, that's weird too.
This is revealing a lot about me.
That's
I get
weird
it.
too, but I want to get back to the collapsible funnel.
Okay.
Seriously, tell me one time that you've used that. What do you use it for?
Just recently, I hadn't packed it and I was like, God, why didn't I pack my funnel?
One. Just give me one, Tammi. I literally cannot think of the...
I don't know, olive oil into a jar or...
But why are you transferring olive oil in a vacation rental?
I know.
On the fly?
I know, I can't think... Okay, you're right. I can't think of an example. But I know that there have been times it's like, I saw it at, where was it, Cost Plus. I was like, a collapsible funnel. That's brilliant. I don't know. It's one of my favorite kitchen things. Okay, on to the lemon reamer. That's really good. I also generally travel with my own apron. Sometimes with the cutting board. It gets bad out there, Matt. Yes.
You don't bring a cutting board.
Sometimes I do, because you don't. Because I've had experiences like being at places and it's not equipped.
Is this in like all these things in a kit?
It's in my suitcase. Yeah.
You're like walking out the door, like, shit, I almost forgot the sieve.
I know.
I think that's
wire
fantastic.
whisk next.
So
who knows?
you want to? Is that to say that sometimes when you check into a vacation rental, it's not equipped to your liking?
Yes.
And the best way for owners and managers listening to this that don't want to fall into that trap is to maybe stay in your vacation rental for a few nights. A lot of people have never even stayed in a particular property.
That's super important, not only for the kitchen and funnel opportunities, but also, in a vacation rental, if you sit down in a place and there isn't a place to set down whatever you're drinking, it goes on the floor and somebody's going to kick it over. So or you sit down and you want to read and there isn't a light there. So the way that space is actually used is really important.
And cook a good big meal in it.
Yeah.
Invite some friends over and try to make a true meal. It does expose little things that maybe you wouldn't have thought about otherwise. Various funnel opportunities.
That's right. Yeah.
You stay.
By the way, I'm fun to travel with because I'm ready for
fully
anything.
Equipped.
I'm totally ready for anything.
Oh, quick! Did anyone bring a KitchenAid mixer? I was like, yeah, I got one actually. Just pick it up.
Sometimes I travel with office supplies. I mean, I'm just ready to go.
Are you an organizer?
Yes.
A planner?
Do you think so?
Because
why are you asking me this?
I'm now
after our conversation.
Because it's a segue into my next question. I'm now realizing the context of our train experience together, in which you basically helped me logistically get from a remote outpost in Washington to Barcelona.
Yeah.
And that was something that I now realize
when your seaplane was
it was out
tied up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's so annoying when they're not ready with the seaplane. That's just that's one of my planes. You helped me basically. We were in Semiahmoo, if I'm not mistaken, and had to get to Seattle in order to get to Barcelona, but it was a weird timing and quite far, and you helped me with the logistics. That was very helpful. That's something that you do.
I'm the oldest child in my family, and I do all of the planning. So any trip that happens, I'm logistically planning everything. I in my former life, I worked on a documentary in Nigeria, and I was the logistics coordinator, and we were in the middle of nowhere upriver without any services, and so I'm that person who likes to plan.
We're not just skipping over that. What was that job about?
Well, it was a documentary about oil production in Nigeria.
Before the coming of oil, we had good fishes, rich estuaries, good coastal land, good harvest, unpolluted, that our parents and our grandparents had. They were just living and they were getting by. And then this thing called oil came.
And what was your role in that project?
Producer.
How did we skip over this entire part of your life?
I thought we've talked about this.
What's the story?
The story is that I went on a volunteer trip to the Niger Delta. So it was in villages upriver from where there is oil production happening in the southern part of Nigeria. And there's been a lot of devastation to the environment and a lot of conflict. And so I was on a volunteer trip, and that sort of spiraled into helping to create a documentary.
And did it come out? Did you create it?
Yeah. It's called Sweet Crude.
Wow.
You can. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Was that your only venture into independent documentary making?
Yep.
And
it was just a passion project, and
Are you proud of what you made?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the film came out in April of 2009. We toured with it for about a year, and it was quite an experience.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I have a newfound appreciation for your creative Genius. I'm going to watch that. Where do I see it?
I'll have to send you the DVD.
Oh, it's on DVD only?
Mm-hmm.
Straight to DVD?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Do you oftentimes find that all vacation rental professionals have this life prior that is so different and unique from one another?
Yeah, well, I don't meet many people who started out as a vacation rental owner or property manager. It seems like everyone got here through some kind of odd gateway, like something was a gateway drug along the way.
Yeah.
But that said, I think that people who find their way to this industry as someone who's providing hospitality, people don't stay. I mean, this is not something that you really do unless it's something that you really love. So even though people have found themselves, made their way here in some sort of an odd or happenstance sort of way, I think that it doesn't mean that we've got an industry full of sort of, misfits who are just kind of doing something to do something. I think people stay because they had a tiny experience and there was something about it that really sparked something in them about hospitality and about a way to connect with other humans, and then they make something of it.
You teed me up perfectly because
perfect.
When you said the word tiny,
Mm-hmm.
the theme of this season of the podcast
Mm-hmm.
is the tiny architects.
Mm-hmm.
And it's rooted in this Charles Darwin observation when he was exploring the coral reef
Mm-hmm.
off the coast of Sumatra. That's how you say it, Sumatra.
Sumatra. Okay.
And he said that the diversity of organisms in the coral reef as a myriad of tiny architects
Mm-hmm.
were more innovative than anywhere else on the planet.
Mm.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh man, that's kind of what we have here in our
Mm-hmm.
industry.
Mm-hmm.
A whole bunch of tiny architects building their own versions of
Mm-hmm. Loveliness.
loveliness.
Yeah.
If someone's listening to this and they have not yet become a tiny architect, they're still thinking about it. Maybe they have a home that is sitting unused. Maybe they have just enjoyed vacation rentals a great deal and they want to get started. What kind of people do you think fit in this space beyond just being quote unquote passionate about it? What profiles?
I think people who are open, you have to have an openness and a generosity of spirit for other humans. You have to be, I don't think you have to be an extrovert, but you have to be, or you don't have to be, but I think it's best if you're someone who's empathetic about other people's experience and being able to sort of put yourself in someone else's shoes. If you're someone who likes to provide, delightful experiences and extend pieces of generosity, whether it's an early check-in, if you approach welcoming someone with an open heart, whether it's what you provide when guests arrive at your property or an early check-in time or a late checkout if that works, or I think it also takes someone who's smart and clever and pays attention to detail and is savvy.
Can solve problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, someone who can manage conflict, because there's going to be something that comes up that, someone on your team isn't happy, or an owner isn't happy, or a guest isn't happy about something. So someone who can meet those moments with grace and a willingness to listen. And I hear experiences sometimes of people having a challenging guest or a challenging situation, and I feel bad when it's met with a sort of like closed, clenched kind of, I know that there are hard moments sometimes with guests and that sort of thing, but it's the hospitality industry, and it's the act of welcoming people, and that means any circumstance or person, and I think I really believe in the power of hospitality and what a sort of generous reciprocity can create in the world. I think as a human race right now, we're really struggling and having, it's a hard time right now in our world as a collective. And so I think we're all walking around the world a little bit with feeling just a teeny bit on edge. And I think that makes the hospitality industry really poised to soften the world. I know that sounds a little bit lofty, but I really believe in that. And so
I've got this little mantra that I've been repeating to myself over and over again for the past year. Literally, I will walk around my house saying it. It is, if hospitality is the first step to dismantling the barriers of the world, and if vacation rentals represent the bleeding edge of hospitality, then vacation rental professionals have a real opportunity to change the world one guest at a time.
Yep.
I look in the mirror, I tell myself that. I don't actually do that.
I might offer a little more concise version.
Yeah, give me an
for you to
abbreviated version.
So my question is, what if our collective acts of hospitality could change the world?
Oh yeah,
And
that's
I think
way more
it's,
concise.
I think yeah. I mean, when you talk about, tiny, what do you call it? Like,
Tiny architects?
Tiny architects. Like, yeah, it's the sum of all of our collective acts of hospitality. And it's not just at vacation rentals. We can experience hospitality anywhere we are, and we can extend hospitality anywhere we are. And I really do believe there are some spiritual traditions that put hospitality, put that in front of prayer.
Really? Like,
Like it's more, like the act of hospitality is actually more powerful than prayer, according to some spiritual traditions.
which ones?
It was research that I did a while ago, but I'll find it for you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, that really resonates with
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Opening your door and taking care of someone could solve a lot of our problems right now.
Yeah.
What is your one wish?
My one wish for
our industry.
Right now, it's about the problem that I want to put my effort towards solving is the issue of quality in our industry. And when I started in the industry and when I would be invited to speak at places, I would talk about, the conversation would be much like the conversation that we're having right now. It would be about hospitality, it would be about guest experiences. And I think we have to start somewhere really, my experience over the years has told me that we need to start with somewhere that's much more basic, and that we aren't solving quality issues. And we run the risk of, if a guest tries a vacation rental and has a bad experience, then they leave our product, and we have a collective reputation as an industry. So I love the idea of tiny architects. The challenge with that is, how do guests know where and who the tiny architects are and how to find those people? And it could be the case that they book with someone who's a tiny architect and have a beautiful experience and then want to continue choosing vacation rentals, which is good for our industry. It could also likely be the case that they don't choose one of those people and it's someone who doesn't quite know what they're doing or isn't as invested, and so then travelers have a bad experience. And what they do then is that they go back to hotels because they think, I'm not going to try that again with that like dirty sponge, or it couldn't even get in, or all of those things. Like, all of those are guest experiences too. Someone arriving, the last two conferences that I've been at, the big topic has been toilet paper. It's been a very hot topic.
Okay, you've been intrigued.
Well, I've been at the center of that conversation. Because we did a review of like 700 reviews on some properties recently to find out what were the biggest issues that people complained about, and toilet paper was one of the biggest issues.
Bad toilet paper?
No toilet paper.
What?
No toilet paper. It's not even one ply. We're not talking one ply. We're just talking about bad toilet paper. And there are all kinds of those things that are just like process issues. So one of my favorite concepts in college was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so I think of the vacation rental in that way. Like you've got to take care of those basic level of needs, like getting into the property, having it be well lit when you arrive late at night, having toilet paper when you sit down, having towels when you go to shower, and all those kinds of things. Because if we don't get that right, then if you go to the trouble to leave a beautiful welcome basket or a note or whatever, that's going to be lost on people. Or interesting books on the bookshelf or any of those kinds of things, that's going to be lost on people if their basic human needs aren't being met too. So I think that's something that as an industry is a threat to us and that we need to solve for. Because if we don't, then we lose travelers to alternatives, which are hotels. So my one wish for the industry right now, just to start on the step that we're on, is solving our quality and professionalization issues and having a way, creating a vacation rental world where a guest choosing a vacation rental can choose with confidence, rather than right now people want to stay at a vacation rental because of all the great things that we provide, but people book with hope right now. Like, I hope it's going to be okay. Right. They don't book with confidence. We want people to, when they're going on booking a vacation rental, we don't have to, don't worry about you can worry about whether or not you're going to get along with your, sister-in-law or mother-in-law, or the kids are going to be good, or whatever those things are. You can worry about those things, but don't worry about the rest of it we've got. So that's my, I want to go on to, I want us to get to other more meaningful conversations about our industry, but we have to solve the basics first.
I have to be honest, I thought your one wish was going to be collapsible funnels in every property in the world.
Well,
but that was yours was much more noble. How does a professional manager, a progressive-minded one who wants to improve all the time, who's doing all these things, they can only do what's in their control with their business. How do they influence the non-professionals?
This is a question that I asked Simon last year at the Vacation Rental World Summit, because it is a conundrum for our industry. Like, in typical industries, you can be great at your product and your thing, and you just, then everyone will come to you, and it's fine if your competition is doing a crap job, because then you get more business. But in our industry, it's different. It's different for a couple of reasons. Number one, that people can't distinguish between it's difficult to distinguish between your business and someone else's business, because
they're all vacation.
We're all in the same thing together. Yeah. So that's one reason. The other reason, which is a little bit more lofty, is that I don't want, I want every guest to have a good experience. So I want my neighbor's business to be as good as my business, because if a guest chooses their business, I want that guest to have a good experience. So regardless of where someone stays in a vacation rental, or what host or property manager or whatever they choose to stay in, I want them to have a good experience. So it's a little bit challenging for our industry, and it does beg the question, what responsibility do we have to each other to increase the quality of our whole industry product as a whole? And so I think it's through education. It's, but we need to find more opportunities to raise the whole quality. I proposed a set of 10 standards at the Women's Summit last year, and then at the VRMA at the European conference last year. And so maybe, Booking.com just introduced ratings that could give guests an indication of what they're getting into. And I wonder if just basic standards would be a place for us to start as an industry, that we all agree that we're going to provide 2 pillows for every person who checks in, and we're going to provide, so could we agree? Could we agree on a set of standards that if you have a vacation rental, this is what it will include, and you'll provide 24/7, access to someone who can resolve problems, and et cetera, et cetera. So I came up with 10 standards as a sort of proposal. I don't pretend that I should be the one to get to decide what those are for the whole industry, but
I would trust in you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think I have, I have good instincts. Certainly, I would certainly love to start the conversation and kind of get everyone's collective wisdom about something that as an industry we could get behind, so that guests could have something to say, I can book that place because I know that when I check in, these things are going to be in place for me. Did I answer your question?
Yes,
or
you
did I go way off topic?
No. That was
Okay.
a really nice way of putting it. And I like to think of it as we have to ask ourselves, what is the potential upside of each of us individually doing a good job? And it's that these people who are experimenting with vacation rentals for the first time go on to continue choosing vacation rentals for
Absolutely.
the rest of their lives.
Yep.
And the opposite is also true. Like you said, if they have a bad first experience, there's a great likelihood that they may not stay in one ever again.
Yeah, we lose people. And, you know, I've been that person. I love vacation rentals. And there was a trip that I had about a year ago, and it was a series of, like, I had a conference and then meetings. And we started out at vacation rentals. We were sort of going from city to city. And after the second city, I was like, that's it. We're going hotels the rest of the time, because it was too unpredictable. And that's not the experience that we want people to have. And I think, you know, having individual architects, what we want that to look like is that we want that to look like every individual architect provides their kind of like secret individual magic, whatever that is. Yeah. We don't want individual architects to be that there are like one person's doing it one way that's totally, if everyone could have baseline standards that we as an industry say, this is what staying in a vacation rental, what you're guaranteed, and then everyone on top of that, like sort of bottom rung of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, then like do your thing, whether your thing is, you know, there was a property manager that we met a couple weeks ago, and if kids are checking in, they develop a scavenger hunt. So the kids, you know, like do your secret sauce, like whatever your magic is, that's what's beautiful and magical. But if we can all start with the same kind of like base level, and if we can all have, you know, I'm a bit biased because the company that I, you know, properly is about standard operating procedures, and so you can have, you know, it's been one of our critiques or about Airbnb Plus. Like I like that they started with a set of 100 standards. Like this is what we want an Airbnb Plus experience to be, but there has to be follow through once a property like meets that standard. Then how do you make sure every single time that you turn over a property and get it ready for guests, that there's the same level of attention and care and detail, and that, you know, what you promise is what guests are going to experience. So if I was the boss of the world,
right,
I was the boss of quality in the industry, we would start with a basic set of standards that we agree to as an industry. It's sort of like our collective wisdom about this is what it should mean, you know, what a guest should be able to count on when they choose a vacation rental, and then that every person would use standard operating procedures to make sure that that is what, you know, guests experience when they actually check into a home. And then we add our individual magic on top of that.
Something tells me you are going to have a hand in all of that.
I hope so.
Forward, making that happen.
Yeah.
Tammi.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to end each of them with a little high five.
Let's do that.
Hey folks, thanks for listening. I just wanted to remind everyone that this episode was brought to you by Point Central, the home automation experts of our industry. You can head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB, fill out the form, and take a free demo. You'll also get free HVAC analytics, and I can promise you that Sean's team will take great care.